Arnold Schoenberg famously wrote an article about Johannes Brahms entitled Brahms the Progressive. I would like to argue that though we think of Granados as we think of Brahms as a very romantic figure, someone whose musical language and sensibilities were anchored in the Romantic period, I would like to argue that Granados was also a very progressive composer for three basic reasons. One, his absorption in the art of Goya and his attempt to express Goya's depiction of majos and majas in musical terms was completely innovative in the context of the time in which he was composing. I'm not aware of any other Spanish composer who was so deeply influenced by art that he sought to express it in musical terms. The second thing that Granados did, I think, is very progressive, is that although his musical language remained anchored in the 19th century, he was clearly a late Romantic composer. Nonetheless, his interest in the 18th century and in the music of the 18th century and the types of music and dance that were popular in Spain during the 1700s and early 1800s, that, I believe, provided the inspiration for neoclassicism and particularly under the leadership of Manuel de Falla that put down deep roots in Spanish music culture in the 1920s. So I believe that he was a precursor to the neoclassical movement in Spanish music during the 1920s. The last thing I note about Granados's progressive status in the history of Spanish music is that his harmonic language in the Catalan modernist works that he composed, such as the symphonic poem Dante or the opera Follet, which uses a Catalan text. These works exhibit a very advanced harmonic idiom, verging at times on atonality. So that Granados was clearly very aware of modern trends in music. He was deeply influenced by Richard Strauss. And although he was not like Albéniz in the sense that he was deeply influenced by Debussy and Impressionism, Goyescas does not evince the sort of impressionistic flavor that Albéniz's Iberia does. Nonetheless, I believe that Granados was, in his own way, every bit as progressive, every bit as modern as Albéniz, and both of them have much to offer us in the way of sheer pleasure and musical enjoyment, as well as intellectual study.